What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Fools Get Clean 2 podcast, where we highlight people's comeback stories. Welcome our next guest, Stephanie Saucedo. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good.
So, how was your childhood growing up? How was it for young Stephanie?
So my childhood growing up, we were a big family. Like we were the kind of I guess, like my family is a family of Chicanos. We all grew up in the same household. We all lived together. I remember my mom always working, and I remember always being with my dad. I hardly remember him like holding a job ever. So I remember being closest to him when I was younger. Um, but yeah, it was like very family oriented. We had big birthday parties. We celebrated every family tradition together. But at the same time, I saw, I guess, a lot of abuse and violence growing up. My dad was very abusive towards my mom. So, I grew up, me and my siblings, I have two oldest brothers and a little sister. So I grew up seeing a lot of fighting. Um, we had family parties where, everything would turn out cool, and then eventually it would end up somebody getting down and throwing blows and my dad getting into fights. So I have good memories, but it was a lot of trauma growing up.
Was your dad like a homie? Was he like in the.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. So he was a homie. He was from a neighborhood. He passed away, rest in peace. But I remember growing up and his homeboys always being posted outside of our house. Him always going out, my mom and him always having their friends over. Um, there's a lot of drinking. It's a lot of partying growing up.
So, how was it for elementary school and school time for you growing up?
So in elementary school, I was a very shy kid. I was very shy. I was very withdrawn, I guess. I had a hard time making friends. I had a very few friends in elementary school. I remember, going through a little bit of getting picked on. And then when I was 11, my mom and dad decided to get divorced. So we got pulled out of elementary school. And then we lived with my dad for a little bit in Corona, and didn't go to school for I don't even know how long, for half a year.
No way.
Yeah, so we all kind of just hung out, and it was my dad's whole family living in that house. And my mom and him had separated, so she was off doing her own thing, and we just had a good time. Those are some of the funnest memories I remember.
Yeah.
It was a lot of spending time with my dad, but it was also a lot of seeing him go through what he was going through because of the separation. A lot of anger, um, a lot of just taking things out on me and my siblings because he was mad at the situation. And then when I think I was 11 going on 12, my mom came back to get us. It was probably 6 months later or something. A couple months later, she went to come get us and pick us up. And then we went to go live with her in Santa Ana at my grandma's house. And she enrolled us back into school. So it was half a year later, and we went back to sixth grade. And it was a little rough because, like I said in the beginning, I was shy, barely had any friends. So I'm going back into school, and I had the young friends that I did know, that I clinged on to. But it's kind of rough for a kid to be taken out or being put in so many different schools.
Yeah,
You know what I
having
mean?
new friends all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, did your mom and dad drink at all, or do any substances?
Yes. So my mom and dad both drank. My dad, he was also an addict. He abused drugs. I didn't really find that out until my teenage years. But I remember.
How did you find out?
Um, it was just something that came about. After him and my mom had divorced, my mom tried to give us a better life from how we were living in Orange and Santa Ana. So she moved us towards the beach. She met my stepdad, and they ended up getting married, and he was from Dana Point. So she moved us down that way, trying to give us, something better than what we grew up knowing. And at that time I was 12, and I was going into my teenage years. And I was so miserable and so depressed, because for one, we moved to South County, which was totally different from North County.
Yeah.
A lot of white people,
Yeah.
the vibe is different.
Yeah.
So it was just different. And at that, I was like withdrawn, and I was still shy, and I had a hard time making friends. And I was miserable. Like I felt like I was closer to my dad, and I felt like my mom had ripped me out of his arms,
Yeah.
So long story short, I was 13 years old, and I would jump on the bus from Dana Point to go see my dad in Placentia. And that's where I started figuring things out, because I would go into certain people's rooms and I would see white powder on their mirror. Or I would see how my dad's behaviors started changing. He became more violent,
Yeah.
more abusive than he was towards his girlfriends. And that's when I really started figuring out that him and a lot of my family members were using, meth.
Yeah. So, how was junior high and high school for you? Did you make friends then?
So junior high sucked. I mean, it wasn't like so. It was like it was rough. It was rough for me.
Where did you go junior high in
I went
South
to
County?
junior high in Shortcliffe Middle School in San Clemente.
Oh,
So it was. I got enrolled like in the middle of going into that year. So I was in the seventh grade. It was very different. I kept to myself a lot. I had like less than a handful of friends that I would talk to, but I was kind of a loner. Um, and I just did the best I could to get through it. I was really depressed when I was a teenager, like 11 to throughout my teenage years. I was really depressed. I hated my life. I had suicidal thoughts. I was angry at my mom. I was angry at the world. Um, I didn't want to be around anybody, especially at school. So I kind of just, I don't know how I skimmed through it, but I did. But then once I got to high school, is when I started finding the wrong crowds, right?
went to high school out there
I
too?
went to high school. I went to every high school out there. I started off with San Clemente High, and I fell into hanging out with like some of the girls from that hung out with SCVC,
Okay.
and some of them lived in our complex. So like I kind of stuck with them because I was a freshman and it
Yeah.
was my first year there.
Yeah.
So they took me. One of my friends took me under her wing, and I kind of just hung out with them, and um, eventually like I kind of stopped going to school because it's just like it just wasn't like I was just depressed. I just didn't want to go to school.
What grade was that?
That was around probably like my freshman year. I went from San Clemente High and I got transferred to Dana Point because we moved from Capitol Beach to Dana Point. So I transferred to Dana Hills, and I did not like Dana Hills, so I just never went. And then from Dana Hills, I got transferred to Aliso Niguel. I didn't go. I went like one day there. It was hard for me to like find my place. It was hard for me to find people that I felt comfortable with because I felt like such an outsider from the background that I had grown up with and known. Um, I felt like none of them understood because of the things that I went through and the things that I saw as a kid, and how my family was. And then I move over there, and it's just like a totally different scene. I felt like people looked at us differently because we were Mexican, and I mean, it could have just all been in my head, but
Yeah.
that's how I felt at the time, and I just didn't want to be in a school, full of a bunch of kids that I felt didn't understand me or what I was going through, so I just stopped going to school.
So when did you start drinking or using drugs at that time at all? Or?
I started smoking pot at 13. I started smoking with my oldest brother. He has been in and out of our lives. Like I have two older brothers, and my oldest brother is always either incarcerated or he's still on the streets. He's always in and out of our lives. So at that age, at 13, he was in and out of my life, but I would see him when I would take the bus to my dad's house, right? And he would always give me like a little sack of bud, a little sack of pot, and he would tell me, "Hey, this is for you. Take it home. Salad, do what you want to do with it." But I would, smoke it with my friends, or when he would come over and visit, we would all smoke pot together. And then when I turned like 14-ish is when I started drinking. I got drunk for like the first time, I think when I was 14 off of hard liquor.
Where was it at?
At my brother's birthday party.
No way.
Yeah, it was like we were celebrating my brother's birthday, and like that was the first time that I really drank and I got all drunk. But alcohol had never really been my thing. Like I got drunk a few times here and there. I had my first boyfriend at 14, and we would go out and drink and just cruise around South County. But it was never really my thing, you know? So one time when I was 14 going on 15, I think I was just turned 15, um, I got into an argument with my mom. And like I said, I was already angry. Like
Yeah.
I already had so much anger for her, and I didn't want to live with the family that I was living with. And I was just going through my own shit, you know? And I got into a fight with her and she kicked me out. So I took off and I ended up going back to that apartment complex that I lived in Capitol Beach. And I went to my friend's house. And that was the very first time that I had tried crystal meth. It was offered to me. And then I just did a line, not knowing what to expect because I was so angry inside. And I stayed up the whole night with them. And then I went to school the next morning, all fucked off. And from then on, by that time I was in a continuation school in San Juan, and I had my crowd of friends at that time. I had finally met my crowd of friends because we were a bunch of kids that were lost, that were going through family drama, and we all just kind of clicked together. And it was a diverse crowd, you know. And I had my best friend at the time, and so I went to school that next day, and I was on a sick one, and I told him, hey, like one of my friends had already been using, you know, but me and my best friend weren't using. And I went back and I told all my friends, like, hey, like I tried this new thing. And so from then on now, we started buying Coke. I started snorting Coke, and then eventually snorting that Coke turned into snorting crystal meth on a daily basis, every day. Stopped going home. I was running the streets in San Juan, kicking it with the homies, and all bad.
So you were staying with your mom at the time?
I was staying with my mom.
Did she know you were using, or
No.
No way.
No. Mm-mm.
How did you hide it from her?
I just hid it. I mean, I was hardly ever home. Once I started using meth, like I was hardly ever home. I was out the door. I was gone. I was running the streets in San Juan, and I would stay at my best friend's house, and we would just like get high all night in her room. And I would come home days later, and my mom, I don't know if my mom knew. She could have known because, I mean, she shares a similar background.
Yeah.
Like my mom's had years clean. She has her own story, and you know, she's an addict herself, but she's been clean for years because she chose to do it when she had kids, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure she knew.
Yeah.
I'm just pretty sure I'm she was probably in denial, you know what I mean? But I really didn't care. I really didn't care. Like I found my like everything at the time. Like it took me out of my misery, and it took me from being like thinking about my depression. And I mean, I still had dark thoughts, and I still had like suicidal thoughts, but not so much because I was so busy running the streets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what were you doing running the streets? Committing crime or just hanging out?
Just hanging out. Yeah. Just hanging out in alleyways at 15.
No way.
Doing nothing, just like tripping out.
Yeah, yeah.
Just posting in the middle of the alley, you know?
So did your usage ever like get you incarcerated?
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't start getting incarcerated until I was like 18. So eventually me hanging out in San Juan, just like getting high and partying, turned to well, I got pregnant with my oldest son, and I tried to sober up. I did sober up. I sobered up, you know, pregnant, and I had a relapse while I was pregnant, which, you know, which was just, you know, fucked up.
Was meth?
Yeah, I was just a meth user for most of my addiction, and so I sobered up, and after I had my son, and my son's father at the time, I was with him since I was 16, and I had my oldest son at 18. I graduated high school with pregnant with him and everything, you know, and I my son's father, he had just gotten busted when I had the baby, so it gave me a chance to try to sober up because we were using together and he was the connect, and it was all bad. It was an abusive relationship and just a lot of like cheating and just abuse and just a lot of drug use, and he got arrested and it gave me the chance to try to clean up, and I did for a little bit, and I started working, and I had my shit together, and I was living with my mom and my siblings and my stepdad, and um, he got out of jail, and he would just come to the house and like just bother me, and I told him like I can't, like I'm trying to stay clean for the baby, and he was using, and eventually, like, I don't ever blame anybody for my using, but eventually like I just couldn't do it anymore and I ended up relapsing, right? And
Did he get high around you?
he would show up to my house high and he would get abusive, and like I just, so eventually that turned into me just like I just didn't want to do it anymore, and I relapsed. And my mom found out that I relapsed and she kicked me out, and she called my dad, and my dad was living in Santa Ana, and he was living with my aunt, and she was like, you need to come get your daughter. So like at that time I had my car and I was like, you know what, I'm out. So I went to go live with my dad in Santa Ana, and from then on it was all bad. I started stealing cars. That's where like my criminal background really developed. I met all the homies and homegirls that I had in Santa Ana, and we just started like doing stupid shit, and I just started catching a lot of cases.
Remember the first time you got busted?
The first time I got busted, I think I was 19. I was 19, or I was probably 20, and I got busted for GTA,
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto.
What was it like going to the county the first time? Were you nervous or scared or anything?
Um, Not really. Not. I mean, I think everybody's a little bit nervous when they get busted for the first time. But like I had already had that mentality after running the streets. You know what I mean? Like I was just running the streets, and just like I'm the type of addict that like when I run the streets, like I run to the fullest. Like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it to the fullest. So like I just get into that zone where I don't give a shit. I'm gonna just do what I want to do. So like I already had that hardcore street mentality. So when I got busted for the first time, I was nervous, but like it didn't phase me.
How was it the first time? How long did you do?
I did like 6 months.
Yeah.
I did like 6 months the first time. And it was cool. Like I felt like going to jail is where I've been the most comfortable.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I've been the most comfortable because like I it's like nothing to me. Like all the homegirls eventually roll in, and it's like a little family in there, and like I'm not the type of inmate that always had money on my books, but I always had a way.
Yeah.
I always had homegirls that would help me out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean.
So how many times did you get incarcerated?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. A lot.
Like how many is a lot? Like
Shoot,
5 or 10? Or...
No, probably more than like. Jeez.
All for the same stuff?
All for different things: possessions, Grand Theft Autos. Um, I got in a high speed chase.
What?
Yeah, ammunition. I had they got me for like having guns and stupid shit. Like that's not even like I never like carried that shit on me. I would just like run the streets, you know what I mean? But like I would go and like car fish.
So did you ever make it to prison?
I did. I had a car, and I was trying to come up because I was sick. I wasn't sick. I was coming down. At the time, I think at the time I was using heroin. I had started using heroin, and I was coming down. I was, and like just to get into that, my dad had passed away, right, in 2016, and before that, I had cleaned up, but I was drinking. Like I cleaned up off of meth, and I had my own apartment in Irvine. I had my kids again. I had my second son, and I had them both with me, and I was doing good, and I was going to school and working, and Um, I was drinking though. Like I gave up one addiction for another, right? I substituted it, and I was drinking all the time and always having friends on my pad and going to work the next day drunk, and like I was just always drinking, going to clubs. That's when OG Mike's was popping, and
Yeah.
um but I was trying. I wasn't getting high, and then I stopped talking to my dad and I stopped going around people. And then I ended up with somebody and they ended up moving in with me. And then it was all bad. And I eventually relapsed and I lost everything. Like I lost my housing. I lost my apartment. I crashed my car and I got my second DUI. I was like 3 times the limit.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, I was drinking and, my car was totaled. I crashed into my own apartment complex like
No
a dumbass.
way.
Yeah. And
You remember crashing?
I do. I remember crashing and I
How
remember
did you crash though? You just lost control, or
I lost control of the wheel. Well, I was leaving my complex because I remember downing a pint of Fireball whiskey, and I got in the car and I drove off. And when I was getting on, I lived in Irvine. I was getting onto the freeway and I went over the curb and I popped my tire and it was bent in.
no way.
So I was like, oh, fuck, I got a flat tire. So I got to go back home and change it, whatever. So I went back home. I got off the freeway, went in a circle. And when I was turning into my complex, I lost control of the wheel and I crashed into my apartment sign.
No way.
And like all my neighbors were so nice. They were like coming out. They're like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Let's help her push the car off the grass." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all drunk. I'm all help me, just help me,
No way.
And then somebody ended up calling the cops. They were like, "I think she's on drugs and she's
No way.
drunk." And I'm like cussing him out. And then the cops roll up and then they do the sobriety test on me and I passed. I passed the sobriety test, right? But then they were like, "No, put your hands behind your back." And then I got all crazy with the cops and then it was it was all fucked up. But I was 3 times the limit, they said, and that was my second DUI. And so long story short, like I ended up losing everything after that because I ended up relapsing. Um, my drinking got worse, and then I just went from drinking to getting high again. Like I said, I was with the wrong person. We started using again. We started using together, and then after I lost everything, one day my mom came to help me move out, and I told her I'm going to go get boxes, and I left her with my kids, and I just didn't go back.
No way.
Yeah, I was like back into my depression. I felt like a piece of shit mom. I've always carried so much guilt with me, like having my kids and always like and using, I've always had a lot of guilt when it comes to me using and having my kids, So I walked out on them and I just didn't go back. My mom ended up taking them to her house, and pretty much everything that was left in my apartment was just like, done for. It was just like left, I just didn't care. Like, it's not that I didn't care. I was too down. I was just so too down. I was just so like guilt driven and shameful and like, um, I didn't have the coping skills, I didn't have the coping skills. The only coping skills I knew to deal with the things I went through was to run away or to go get high. Right. So that's what I did. I came back to Santa Ana. And I was just on another mission again. And that's when I had ended up at Civic Center. I was living at Tent City.
Tent City.
Yeah, baby. I was living at Tent City and just running amok, man. I was running amok. And then my dad had passed away. And
where'd your dad pass away of?
He was an addict too. He was an addict most of his life. And like I said, I didn't find out till I got older. But eventually it took him out. Like he had heart issues, and it just him using caused him to have a stroke, and he had one of the most severe strokes that a person could have, and it caused his brainstem to hemorrhage, and then he ended up in a coma, and then he was supposed to die, and we had to make the choice to pull the plug.
Yeah.
And I was using hard.
Yeah.
And then when the day that came that we were supposed to pull the plug, he came out of his coma, and he survived for about 6 more months, and then he passed away in his sleep.
No way.
But he was clean.
Yeah.
Those 6 months of him coming out of his coma, he was clean.
Yeah.
So
was it able to move around and function normal?
He was left disabled. Yeah, he was left disabled. He couldn't really do much for himself. So I think that's what made it hard for him.
Yeah.
So he just passed away in his sleep one day. And when that happened, I was the first one that my aunt called, and I was right there at Royal Roman, just chilling on the curb.
Yeah.
And man, that was like one of the most devastating things I had ever dealt with. And it was just on and cracking from there. I eventually got arrested, like right after his funeral. I got arrested, and I started using heroin in county. I got a hold of some, and I was like, fuck it. And I was the type of person that was always so against heroin because I had so many friends that used it, and I just didn't like how it made them.
Yeah.
I didn't like my perception of the drug, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was always so against it. And I was just a meth head. And after that, I was like, fuck it, and I started using heroin, and I fell in love with heroin. And from then on out, it was just about getting heroin. So when I got in the high-speed chase is because I was trying to come up to get some more heroin, and it was just the wrong day, the wrong time. We shouldn't have been doing what we were doing anyways. And cops ended up rolling up on me. I was in a G ride, and I was like, I'm not stopping this fucking car.
Yeah.
So I just booked it, and they started chasing us, kind of high-speed chase. And then I got busted for that, and it sent me to prison. I was supposed to go to prison for like a year. I was fighting the case for a little while. Like, they wanted to give me a bunch of time because of what they caught me with. And I just wrote it out. And eventually they broke me off with like a year and something. And I ended up going to Chowchilla. And then from Chowchilla, like, I was getting in fights. I was just like running amok in Chowchilla. Like, I loved prison.
How come you were getting in fights?
Because we just didn't get along. I just didn't get along with people.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you're locked up. You know what I mean? Like, stupid shit. Certain things, like, were said. People didn't get along, or I got to get down with them. And that's what happened. And I caught more time. And then from Chowchilla, I ended up going to Folsom. So I went to Folsom. And I was in Folsom, and I caught more time there for fighting and for tattooing, stupid shit. And I caught more time. So I ended up doing like 2 years in all, just because I caught more time like a dumbass. But I mean, prison was different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't say that I enjoy prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's where my mentality was. My mentality was like, if I get caught and have to go do jail time, or if I have to go do prison time, I don't care. Like, it ain't gonna faze me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like going to prison better than the county for sure.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot,
Yeah.
better food, better everything.
Yeah, packages.
Yeah.
When you got out of prison, you continued to use drugs, or?
I did.
Yeah.
So I got out of prison. I got out on AB 109, and I continued using. I got right out. I went back to using heroin. Same old shit, running amok, trying to come up, hustling. And eventually, like, I was just doing the car thing. And then, I didn't really do too much of like the GTAs anymore, because I was just like over that. Like, I didn't want to keep going back, so I just did my little hustles to get high. And it just eventually led me to being in and out of jail. My AB 109 probation officer was on my ass, but at the same time, he was trying to help me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he was trying to help me. I would go, like, the last few times I got busted being under his supervision, I actually was checking in. I was trying to check in, and I would show up all fucked off, and he would test me knowing I was going to come out dirty, and he would like give me chance after chance. He would tell me like, I want you to go to a program, and I would tell him, okay, I will. But I was just trying to like tell him what he wants to hear. You know what I mean? And so eventually, like, I ended up getting busted in a G ride again. And I did a couple months, and they let me out on an ankle monitor. And here I am, like cruising down First Street with the ankle monitor on. You know what I mean? Thinking I'm, still untouchable. And but at that time, like I was already tired. You know what I mean? I was tired of like getting locked up, and even though I could handle it, like I was tired of it. You know what I mean? And I was tired of just like trying to hustle every night for a motel room. And like even though I was on the streets, I always had places to stay, but I would have rather been on the streets hustling to have my own stuff. You know what I mean? So I was hustling for my own momos because like I had an ankle monitor on, and the homies were like, "Nah, Steph, like you can't." You know what I mean? I'm like, "It's cool, it's cool."
Yeah.
But like eventually like my PO started like hitting my rooms, and every time he would hit my room, I would get taken in, and like um and around that time is when I started using fentanyl. My my One of my homegirls took me to one of her friends' motel rooms, and I tried fentanyl with them for the first time, and I was like, "Fuck," and I started using it, and it was just fentanyl and heroin. I hardly was using meth, it was just those two, and then that's when I really started changing. Like once I started using fentanyl is when I really started changing, and I knew I was changing. You know what I mean? Like if ever I felt like a fucking crackhead is when I started using fentanyl. You know what I mean? And so my PO was hitting my rooms, and I remember one of the first times I had ever gone sick was he took me in on a 24-hour hold, and he took me in just like shorts and a tank top and socks, and I was in the holding tank freezing, just like sick as a dog, and I remember that feeling, and I was like, fuck, I don't ever want to go through this feeling again, So when that 24 hours came up and they let me go, I remember like walking down, because my ex at the time lived around the corner from the jail, and I walked to her house, and I was in my socks looking all homeless and shit, and I was just so sick, and nobody was answering their phones, and I just remember like throwing on a sweater and putting some shoes on, and walking down First Street, just sick, man. And that was the first time I had ever gone sick off of Fetty. And my cousin happened to drive by, and she picked me up, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'm fucking sick. Like I need some fentanyl." And I remember she dropped me off on First and Lion because I saw some of my homies at one of the spots. And I jumped out the car, and I was like, not even a thank you. I was like, all right, I gotta go. And I jump out, and I go over to them. I'm like, I need some fentanyl, man. I just got out of jail, And they didn't have any, but my homegirl had a syringe of heroin, and I've never shot up.
Okay.
I've always been against shooting up. That's just never been my thing, And they were like, Steph, like we don't have any Fetty, but like here, this shot will help you, And I was like, no, I'm cool, And they're like, yeah, it's gonna help you. Don't trip. And I was like, all right, just do it. And I had my eyes closed,
Yeah, me too.
And like I remember, yeah, man. And I was like, just do it,
I hated needles too.
Yeah. And I remember she held it to my arm, and she was like, all right, you ready? You ready? And I was like, no, hold on. And I was so fucking sick, and I was like, all right, just do it, man, just do it. And right when she was about to shoot me up, I said, no, I'm cool. I'm cool, man. And I just sat there, and I was like, nah, man, because like I had that moment of, if I fucking shoot up right now, like it's over for me. It's over, that's all it's gonna be. So I told her, no, I'm cool. And I eventually started walking to my homegirls again, and she I got what I needed. And that's like, those were little moments, like I guess those are little God shots that opened my eyes, what I mean? And yeah, from then on it was just like all about my fentanyl. It was all about my fentanyl. I didn't give a fuck about anybody else but my fentanyl. Like my ex at the time, I was staying with my homegirl, and I would tell my homegirl, hey, don't tell nobody, go downstairs and get me some fentanyl. And she would run downstairs, rest in peace, man. She just passed away, but she would run downstairs, and she would go get me some Fetty, and she would come back up and be like, Steph, I gotta talk to you. And give it to me, and then I would get wow, and it was all bad. Like, and I just felt the change in me. Like, I didn't like who I was becoming when I was using fentanyl. You know what I mean?
So when did the light turn on? When did you finally decide to stop?
Um, so it didn't come on until a couple overdoses after. The very first time I overdosed, um, I was with my homegirl, and um, man, that was an experience. I remember too, like it was an experience I can't even explain. But I came to, and she was on top of me, like, and I was just like crying, and she was like, "What the fuck, Steph?" And um, that was the very first time I had ever overdosed, and she was scary. That shit was scary, man. And
Did she Narcan you or no?
yeah, she narcan me like I think twice, once, and then she was doing CPR, and and they were slapping me, and she said that like I wouldn't come to, and then finally, she just kept doing CPR, and I came to, and um, but like that was a heavy experience, and that was the first time, and I went back to my motel. I was at the Motel 6 on First Street, and I I was chilling, and then my mom called me the next morning, and I stepped out of the motel room because she called me, and like I didn't see when I was on the streets. I would like I didn't see my family. I didn't see my kids because I chose not to like intervene while I was in my addiction. You know what I mean? Because I knew like the things I did, and I didn't want them to see me like that. And as messed up as it is, like, and I knew my kids were hurting, like I just didn't want them to see me in my addiction. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, if you knew me back then, like I was just a totally different person, like a 180, and just really angry. And I just didn't want them to see me like that. And but I would still talk to my mom, I would still like meet up with her here and there, and I'd give her my food stamp card, or when we got all that EDD money, I would shoot her money. And so she called me to check up on me, and she was crying, and she was crying, and she told me like I know, like I know you're in your addiction, but I know eventually like you're strong enough to come out of it. And she goes, I don't want to have to bury you. Like I don't want to bury my kid. Like a mother shouldn't have to bury their kid. And she was crying, and in my head I'm thinking, man, if you had only known that I had just like gone out last night,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I could have been like gone, And by the grace of God, like it wasn't my time. But like if she had only known, and that's all I was thinking. And she told me, I want you to take care of you. Like, don't worry about your kids. They're fine. They're okay. Take care of you, and when you're ready, you'll come back. And I hung up, and I just started crying. And that was my first instance of, man, I can't do this anymore, because it's true. Like I had to bury my dad in his addiction, and I didn't want my kids to have to bury me in my addiction.
Yeah.
So um, after that, I got busted, and then I got out, and then no, I didn't get busted. After that, I overdosed again like a week later. Um, I was with my friend that had just come back from being clean, and she relapsed, and she didn't know anything about fentanyl. And we were driving, and we stopped at the train station, and I took my hits, and I guess I went out, and she didn't know what to do. She thought I was sleeping, So she was like, yeah, I thought you were sleeping. And I went to the restroom, and I freshened up, and I was like,
No
what the
way.
fuck?
Left you there dying.
Yeah, bro.
That's
And then
crazy.
and then I was like, so then she was like, she said she came back after brushing her teeth and washing her face, and she came back, and I was blue. And she was like, what the fuck? So she drove me from the train station to the Motel 6, and she went knocking at the door, and like my homeboy, my homegirl already knew, and they were like, "What the fuck, Steph?" And they did CPR on me, and they Narcan me twice, and then they threw a bucket of ice water on me, and I finally came to, and that was my moment number two. Was like, damn, like what the fuck are you doing? Like not only like am I hurting myself and my family, like now I'm like hurting my friends that I'm obviously getting high with, but they're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So that kind of woke me up. Like, damn, if like they're talking shit to me, like that must
Yeah.
be bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I must be fucked off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And after that, is when I ended up getting busted again. I got busted after that shortly. I got busted with my friends in Orange. We got rolled up on by like some undercovers, and they found fentanyl on me, and um, they were trying to get me for sales. I didn't even have a lot, but you know how it goes with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And I was all fucked off. Like I was so fucked off. Like I don't know if I was going out in their back seat. I was just like fucked off. And um, so when I got to jail, you know, that's when they offered me drug court. And at first, I was like, I'm not going to do no fucking program. You know what I mean? But I was on the fence of wanting to get clean and not knowing how to get clean. Like I wanted to get clean. More of me wanted to get clean, but I didn't know how. And I didn't know how I could live my life without getting high again.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing that kept me out there is this is all I know. This is all I know since I was 15.
Yeah.
Is running the streets, you know, and hustling and like just not giving a fuck because I was so miserable with myself, you know. But I wanted to get clean because like I have kids, and I didn't want them to know me as fucking fentanyl addict, like just an addict period, you know. And so they offered it to me. And at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna get clean. But more of me was like, all right, I'm gonna say yes because I want to get out of jail.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to fucking do time. And I was still on AB 109. So, and I couldn't stand my PO. So they said, hey, if you sign up for drug court, we'll dismiss and discharge your AB 109. So I was like, oh, okay. Because I was on the ankle monitor, mind you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I cut it off. And I went on the run. So that's when they offered me drug court. And they said, we'll discharge your AB 109. And I said, all right, if you discharge my AB 109, I'll sign up for drug court. And so I did. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I was taking my Suboxone in jail, but I was still like fucking around in jail. You know what I mean? It's so easy to fuck around in jail.
Yeah.
So I was still fucking around in jail. I was on Suboxone. I had signed up for AB 109. I eventually got out. I got into a program. I got into Wood Glen. And I couldn't do it, man. I didn't like it. I didn't like the people there. I didn't like the programming. I didn't want to sponsor. I felt like it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. Like, what am I going to do with program? You know. So one day they were waiting on my Suboxone to come in, and it took longer than ever. And my head started fucking with me, and then in my head was telling me, "Oh, like you're itching, you know." And I started feeding. I started craving, you know, and I wanted to go use. And that was my excuse. Oh, well, you guys fucked off, and now I've been dealing with my cravings all day, and now fuck this. And so I packed my fucking trash bag, and I told the guy at the door at the guy that was working that night, the night shift. I said, hey man, like I'm bouncing out, man, like I can't do this. And he was like, well, there's the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. I was like, all right, you know. I mean, it's like if you don't want the help, save it for someone that does, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I told him too. I go, I'm not ready, so I might as well give the bed to someone that needs it, you know. Yeah. So I left and I took off, and luckily, like my sponsor that I have now, I know her from the streets, and she got clean. She's got a couple years over my head, and she went to Wood Glen, and we connected, and she wasn't my sponsor then, but like I got close to her because I knew her, you know. And I ended up calling my homegirl who had just gone out of jail, and she went to go pick me up, and we walked to her spot to go pick up and get high. Well, this bitch takes me to some dumpster area, right, in an apartment complex. And we walk in the dumpster area, and all her homeboys are kicking it right there. And lo and behold, when we're walking to the dumpster area in Fullerton, like underneath these nice house apartments, one of the homies that I was at the Wood Glen with, he had left that night too, and he went with my homegirl, my friend Amy, the one that I reconnected with, and he went to her house because he had left the program too. And I happened to be walking by while he was on her patio smoking a cigarette, and he was like, "Steph, what the fuck? What are you doing, Steph?" And I was like, "Hey man, what?" Because I knew he was with Amy, and I was like, "Man, shut the fuck up, bro." And So he's like, oh, okay. So I ended up going to the dumpster area, and we're about to like go pick up. And then my homegirl Amy, who's my now sponsor, came banging on the fucking dumpster door.
No way.
Like, Steph, what the fuck are you doing in there? Get out of there. What are you doing? You're going to get high in a dumpster area? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, fuck, bro. And I was telling them, don't fucking answer. Don't answer, man. Shut up. She was like, I could hear you whispering. Get the fuck out of here. And so I go out and she's like, look, man. She's like, you may not think that the program's for you. And she had this talk with me. She's like, look, go up to my apartment and stay the night. And if in the morning you wake up and you want to get high, I'll give you $20 and I'll take you to Santa Ana. And I was like, well, fuck, just give me the money right now and drop me off. You know what I mean? And she's like, no, for real. So I said, all right. I said, okay. And I went up there and I ended up falling asleep. And the next day I spent all day with her, and she took me back to Wood Glen to grab all my stuff. And I was cool, but like at the back of my head, I already had my plans.
Yeah.
And she knew it, but she was trying, she was trying to like keep me there, and I got on Facebook, and that was my biggest mistake. Is I got on Facebook, and my homegirl hit me up, and she was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I left the program. She's like, don't trip, I'm gonna Uber you to my house. And I was like, all right, cool, you have fentanyl? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. So she Ubered me to her pad, and it was on and cracking. She gave me some fentanyl, and I went back to where I started. And then I told Amy, like, hey, I'm gonna go stay at my friends, don't trip, like she's cool, not knowing that, I'm going to my fucking, the homegirl's pad, and so I ended up going there. I got high, and then I bounced out on her, and I went back to Santa Ana, and I knew, like, she was like, don't trip, you can stay here, and like, it was out of Orange County, so I was like, this would be a safe spot for me. But my dumbass wants to go back to Santa Ana, like I always go back down to First Street.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back down to First Street, and I got my fentanyl on me, and I'm cool. I'm like ready to go, and ended up going back to Santa Ana, and it was just different that time. Like, it wasn't. I didn't want to go out there and hustle. Like, I didn't want to. I didn't even want to leave the apartment. Like, I just sat on the couch all strung out on fentanyl, and I was like, fuck, man, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I think I left the apartment. I was there for like a week. I left the apartment one time to go to the liquor store and buy scratchers. I was just smoking fentanyl the whole time, and I was like, fuck, man, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even about what I used to be about anymore. Like, it's just about me sitting, like, just being strung out on fentanyl, and I didn't like that. You know what I mean? It's bad enough that I didn't like myself as an addict, but then even more so, I didn't like myself as a fentanyl addict. I felt like a fucking crackhead, and
like a zombie,
like a zombie, man. And I didn't like, because like I'm used to being all like, let's go, and it was just like, I was just like always nodded out, and my ex at the time was like, fuck, man, like, you just always nodded the fuck out, man. And I'm like, and it was just bad. I was bad. And so my homegirl went to pick me up, and I was like, nah, I ain't trying to leave. And she's like, come on, let's just go. And I was like, nah, man, I'm cool. And she was like, let's just go. And she picked me up, and we went for a cruise, down to Long Beach and just around the cities. And we ended up in Orange, and that's when we got rolled up on. And I had my fentanyl on me. That's when no, that was the past story. That's how I got into drug court. That week, I got busted again, and then they offered me drug court again. Yeah, my story's mixed up, but they offered me drug court again. They didn't want to, because I was a runner, and they don't really tolerate runners. You know what I'm saying? They're like, no, you're gonna fucking run, So they offered me drug court again, and I took it, and they had started this new thing in jail called what was it? The shot, Subutex?
Oh, Sublocade?
Sublocade. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to stop using fentanyl. Like, I need to stop using fentanyl. I need to stop using heroin. And I said, all right, I'll do drug court, and I want to try this Sublocade. So I started taking the shot in jail, and man, that shit saved my life. Like, if ever I could recommend anything to any fentanyl addict, I would recommend Sublocade, because that shit saved my life. So I signed up again. They gave me another chance. I started doing Sublocade, and then eventually I got into Vera Sanctuary. And Vera Sanctuary, man, that place, like, that place is magical. That place saved my life.
Yeah.
That place saved my life.
Yeah, it's a good place.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot
it's a really good place.
What's the owner's name? Laura?
Laura Burns. Lori Burns. Yeah.
Laurie Burns.
Yeah, she's awesome, man.
Yeah, she's with
it. Yeah.
So you went through there and you completed it?
I did. I went through Vera's. I eventually discharged my AB 109. I got my probation officer, who was the drug court PO, Miss Fleming. Shout out to Miss Fleming. And she was hard on me, man. She was fucking hard on me. Like, she didn't trust that I wouldn't run, because the first time I ran, I hadn't even met her. Her partner came to see me at Wood Glen, and I said, "Hey, am I discharged from AB 109?" She was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "All right, cool." And then I bounced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I got to Vera's, it was the first time Fleming had met me, and she was fucking tough, man. She didn't trust me. She was hard on me. She didn't give a shit about anything I said. You know what I mean? Which was, I mean, it comes with the territory, right?
Your history proves that.
And my history proves it,
Yeah.
So, like, I was cool with it. I went through Vera's. I asked her if I could stay another month. It's a 3-month program. I stayed 4 months, and I didn't want to leave. I love Vera Sanctuary. It's a big part of my recovery. It taught me a lot about myself. I've been through programs before, but never to the point where I was so excited to learn about me. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, they helped me. And then when I was there, me and my friend got offered a job to help a woman down the road maintain her horses, and I got to do that.
No way.
And that was the most beautiful experience I had ever done.
Horses scare me.
Yeah, no,
like
horses are badass.
Yeah,
they're badass.
I get freaked out.
Yeah. So we would go and clean up their stables, and we would take them to go graze and walk, and it was, man, horses, they're like, they sense people, man.
Yeah.
They're intelligent, man, and it being with those horses taught me a lot about patience and humility, and just like being able to appreciate life, man.
So what does life look like for you today?
So today, my life is beautiful. I got 4.5 years clean.
That's right.
Yeah. My clean date is 12/15/21.
That's right.
And I got a good job. I was blessed enough to land a job at a retail store. I am a department manager.
Awesome.
I have my own team. And life is good, man. I have my boys back in my life.
That's right.
And I'm working on my relationship with them. It's a lot better than when I first got clean. But in time. And I love me today. Like going to Vera's and being in drug court taught me how to cope, how to build the tools I need, how to have patience, how to not run every time something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because being in drug court, man, let me tell you, I wanted to quit so many times.
How long were you in drug court for?
I was in drug court for 2 years.
What's the normal, like 16 months?
16 months, but I don't know. I don't really know if anybody really does a 16 months.
Yeah,
I was probably
2 or more years.
Yeah, I did probably a little bit over 2 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had my trials and tribulations. Like, I've had times where I came out dirty for tests that, I didn't drink.
Sanctions.
And I got sanctioned. And but I kept going, man. Like, by that time, like, I was so deep in it, and my PO was like, nah, like, don't give up, like, Fleming was a big part of she still is a big part of my recovery. She taught me how to love myself as a woman, how to love myself as a mother, and to just keep going. Like I said, there's many times I wanted to give up and I didn't, and I just use those sanctions and those steps back as opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And build from there, and I did my counseling, and I really opened up about things I never opened up to about anybody. And my first years of my recovery, I'll admit, were dry. I would go to meetings, but I didn't work my steps. I didn't have a sponsor. And then I did end up going to my homegirl, Amy, who is my sponsor. She's a damn good sponsor. And I came to a moment in my recovery where I wasn't going anywhere. I was, how do you say, I was stuck and nothing was changing. And I told myself, like, I either need to change something and do something that I'm not doing or do something differently, or I'm going to end up going back. And I don't ever want to go back. You know what I mean? And so I did. I reached out to her and I asked her to be my sponsor, and I worked my steps with her. And I was so scared to do my fourth step. Yeah. Because I had never ever disclosed those secrets with anybody. 100%. Anybody.
Yeah, it took me 4 months to do my fourth
step. Yeah. It took me a little bit, and she like doing those steps helped me to like really open up and get comfortable and make me comfortable with telling my story. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much shit that I held inside since I was a kid.
Yeah.
That still nobody knows, but she knows. Yeah. And I know that she knows, and I was able to speak those words, you know, into existence.
Take away the power.
And take away that power and deal with it, you know? And working those steps was the best decision I had ever made, because it changed me. You know, dealing with that stuff that I held on to for so long changed me, you know? And today I'm able to actually sit down with my kids or whoever needs advice and talk to them and share my experience. I could be honest with my kids and share my experience. They ask me and I'll tell them, you know? And I don't do it to brag, because it's not to be bragged about, but it was a part of my life, you know?
Yeah.
I don't ever regret any decisions I made, because I've learned to work past that guilt and that shame, you know?
Yeah.
So my life is good today, man.
What else are you doing?
So like,
school?
I do school. Yeah. I'm going to Cypress College. That's I'm trying to go for my AA, my BA and my master's in psychology. That's right. Maybe human services.
Part of Rising Scholars also, right?
Part of Rising Scholars. That's you know, I'm trying to get connected. I'm trying to get connected and network, and you know, give back to the community. I've done panels. I've done conventions for like drug court. So whenever and wherever I can share my story, I'm always open to do that. Because I love sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And I just want to plant that seed in at least one person that's listening. You know what I mean? And like, if I could do it, anybody could do it. Because I was one of those diehard addicts. Like, I'm going to the grave with the pipe in my hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And today, I don't think like that anymore. I'm a full-time student. Well, not a full-time student, but I'm a student. I'm a full-time employee. I am a mother. I have a loving family, and you know, like, God is good, man.
That's right.
God is good.
So, do you have any words of wisdom or suggestions to give someone out there who might be struggling, one of our viewers or something?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's out there struggling, my suggestions are to hit meetings. You know, hit meetings, open up. I know it's easy to go to a meeting and just sit there and listen, but you really got to raise your hand and share what you're going through that day, you know, even if it's just like, hey, I'm Stephanie, I'm an addict, I'm here, thanks for having me, you know, and getting a sponsor and working your steps, you know. I wouldn't be here where I am today if I didn't work my steps and discover who I am inside and work on everything that I was struggling with for so long, you know. And just don't ever give up, keep coming back, you know, keep coming back. And just remember that there's always hope. There's always hope for the struggling addict, man. I'm a living example of that addict that didn't have any hope, and you know, and here I am, full of hope and promise, and living a good life. You know, thanks to my higher power. You know.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Stephanie. I appreciate you sharing your story. And remember, change is possible. Mm-hmm. Redemption. Fools get clean too. What's your comeback story?